Okay, so thank you guys for coming. I know this is the lunchtime slot, and I'm also aware of some of the other names, so I'm really chuffed that you've come to find out about finding my voice. Do feel free to interject, put your cameras on. We are a small group, and it would be really nice to feel like I'm not some kind of weirdo talking into my computer. I do these kind of things, but it doesn't get any easier. Thank you, honey. There's a human out there. um, it's a bizarre time. It's been a mad year. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, it's just been the most extraordinary time for me personally, growth and just embracing this technology. And one of the wonderful things about it is being able to connect in this way with other people all around the world. And I just love that element of it all. So today I'm going to talk to you about Finding My Voice. It's a project I run in the Southwest, which is not just about the physical voice, but also about the metaphorical voice. But before I do that, I just wanted to tell you a little bit of my story. Um, also, sorry, I won't tell you my story. I want to explain the concept, but I also want to give us time to have a little chat because what I love is meeting other humans. So I don't want to just talk at you. I want to interact with you too. So I will make sure there's time for that as well. So my story, this is me and my two little girls. Um, I'm self-employed. When I first became self-employed nearly 5 years ago, I was told, don't ever let anyone know that you're a mummy. Um, and actually, do you know what? I've been on such a personal journey, and I really love telling people about my kids because it really informs my journey. So there is me with my two children, who are now a bit older than that, but it's a cute photo. So I was a theatre student. I trained in theatre. I wanted to be an actress. I had that ambition from as long as I can remember. I wanted to be on the stage. But when I got to uni and I experienced the culture of theatre and how cutthroat it was and how people were really pushing themselves forward. It just didn't feel very fulfilling. It didn't feel a lot of the people that were on my course, it was quite a you were in with the in crowd or you weren't, and I didn't know where I fitted. And so I concluded by the end, much as I love being on the stage, it wasn't a career, it wasn't a vocation for me. So when I finished my course, I phoned my dad up and said, Dad, I've got it. I want to be a nurse. You know, this is a profession that I'm really, really going to thrive in. I need to be in a caring profession. And my dad said, not on your Nelly, because actually I'm not going to pay because I hadn't even done any science A levels. I would have to go right back to the beginning. He said, no, you've got to find something else, Rachel. So I really wanted to stay where I was because my boyfriend was gorgeous and he was living in the same place. So I was like, got to go and stay in this place. So I decided to enroll in a PGC because it was free. And the first time I walked into a classroom, I still remember it to this day. I sat down and I'd been told by a teacher I could read a book to the class. And I sat there and I was reading this book. It makes me have goosebumps to this day because I actually couldn't carry on reading because I burst into tears. Because in that moment, I knew I was one of those lucky ones that had found their true vocation. And I've been absolutely in love with education ever since. So that's
I just want to watch this. It's about 15 minutes.
Oh, can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you. So yeah, I was a teacher, loved it, absolutely loved education. I went into senior leadership, did my MPQH, but all along I just felt like a complete imposter. Much as I loved being with the kids and I loved growing little humans who I just loved their purity and the way they look at the world, just felt as I saw them go through the years, I saw them dulling their lights and something made me really uncomfortable. I was in primary and it was really focused on output and data. And as a senior leader, I felt really conflicted because I wanted my school to do well, but at the same time, I just didn't want to push these kids to the point of breaking. Um, so yeah, it was a really, really tough time, a time of a lot of internal conflict, and I didn't really articulate it. I was also, I remember doing my MBQH and I was accused of being a bit too wacky. So I really felt like I didn't fit as well. Like my clothes were too wacky and I was a bit too chatty. So, I just wasn't generally conventional enough. Anyway, so I went on maternity leave, came back, and I was approached by a parent in the playground who said, I want you to be the head teacher of my new school. I was totally blown away by this. She wanted to do the free school process. So she was working in prisons with men at the time, and she had been for 15 years doing drama projects, back to drama, bizarrely. And she really felt they'd had a different start in life. If the education system hadn't let them down, they wouldn't be where they were. And so she wanted to create a different approach to education. So we spent 4 years researching curriculums around the world and developed the concept for Exeter Creative School. And in the last 6 months, we were taken on by a big trust here, the Ted Ragg Trust, who wanted a more left field school within their trust. And we went to the DFE, and against all the odds, against some very conventional bids, we won the bid for the school. And it was the most unbelievable moment for me, because at that point I'd really lost faith in the system as a whole, especially having my own kids. I really knew I wanted something different for them. So it was an amazing moment. But very sadly, just 2 weeks after we won the bid, the friend that I'd been on this journey with, she sadly passed away. And in that moment, I just knew, I've got a legacy that I need to carry out here. She was the most dynamic woman I've ever met in my life. And she really believed if you want to have a different world, you need to take responsibility and change it yourself. So that's how I began my business. I've shown you my logo, not because it's a marketing ploy, but it's really important to me because this represents her. She had a company called Ripples, and she really believed that you've just got to create the biggest drip you can and, make those ripples and those people that join you. And so that's where my logo comes from. So I consult in schools, I develop curriculums, I do curriculum design. I also earn my money through children's publishing. I'm a parent blogger. I do some work with Mary Myatt, and some wonderful, wonderful professionals have joined me in my pursuit, and wonderful network of educators around me too, which is great. But one thing I really missed being a consultant was kids. Like, oh my gosh, I was like in a mourning for kids. So I also noticed every school I went into, there were kids in the corridors, kids kicking off, kids not engaging in lessons. And I really felt like I wanted to develop something to support those harder to reach kids, whether it be vulnerable because they weren't able to access education because things that had happened in their lives, whether they had special educational needs, anything that was preventing them from really engaging and succeeding and being fulfilled. So that's how the concept for Finding My Voice was born. Also, I have a real bugbear about the hierarchy of subjects. And I just wanted to create something that would be about, you're a wonderful human, let's help you succeed in the world. So, I really wanted to develop something that was really powerful. Another thing that was part of my research was, what's the difference between a private school education and a state school education? Like, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. So I went to visit private schools, and these kids can speak. Now, we can use the excuse that's because of their upbringing, but actually when I started to speak about the curriculum and the content, those young people are expected to speak and engage on a daily basis. And they are supported to do that both in a formal way and an informal way. And so I looked at what School 21 were doing, the Voice 21 project. I've interacted a lot with them. And I really wanted to develop something that was going to support young people in the development of their voice. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where the whole oracy thing came from. And also, how many 15-year-olds have I approached in a secondary school and I'd ask them, what are you really good at? And they give me a blooming subject. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to know whether you're good at English or maths and which is your best subject. I want to know, what is it that are your real strengths? What are you passionate about? What is it you want to change in the world? And there's just not enough of that dialogue. This is a picture of lovely Sophie. I have permission to share the details of these kids. Lovely Sophie. So she was a runner. And so I got her into a running club, and this is her running with her lovely deputy head, which they did on the weekends together. Um, Another thing that I believe is not right in our education system is that it really focuses on extrinsic award. I think it's really damaging to adults to only believe they're good if they have a piece of paper that tells them they're good, or if they have an accolade or someone tells them they're good. I've learned this the hard way. I went through therapy about 15 years ago because I was just really low in my marriage and I had a new baby, all those sorts of things. And something we discovered was I had been brought up in school and at home on believing I was only good if someone told me so. Everything I was based on other people's opinions of me. I didn't have that deep sense of self and self belief that I needed to succeed in the world. I had a husband, bless his heart, who'd been to private school, and he'd been boarding at the age, he was put in boarding school at the age of 7, and he never told me I was good at anything. And so I was suddenly in this marriage where no one told me I was good. And actually, it really had a deep impact on me. And so I suddenly started to look at the education system and realize, actually, do you know what? This is a system that really, really is based on extrinsic award, and we need to change that. Also taking risks, like every college I go into to work to support them. So by the time kids get to the A-level stage of their education or further ed, they are no longer capable of taking risks. You go into an early years classroom, you will not see that. You will see kids taking risks all over the place, and they're encouraged to do so. But risk taking is something that we need a lot more of in education, and we need to provide those opportunities for it. So that was another part of the thinking. Research for disadvantaged kids, particularly for PPG philosophies, refers a lot to the importance of belonging. And so that's been a really key part of the project for me, is giving something that the kids belong to, and they never stop being part of Finding My Voice. And I'll talk about that. Finally, practical wisdom. That everything I've learned is coming together and I'm now using it in my daily life. I wanted to make sure that when pupils were stepping away from the project, they had that real sense of, I can do this. So that was the thinking behind it, but what does it look like? Actually, it hasn't really got a set profile because it's developed in a bespoke fashion for different individuals. The project runs one-to-one, group work, and then performance-based. But after that, they then move on to mentor new children on the project. So one-to-one sessions are very much about getting to know what it is that you love and you want to do and you want to be in the world. And that's not career-wise. It's, what is it that you really enjoy doing, or what is it that are your strengths? And then we move into group work to develop oracy skills, and then we always have a final performance. The foundations are absolutely key for me, and this is so important. I was a Senko for 10 years, and for me, building those relationships with families is really key. So we're really lucky down here in Exeter that Exeter City provide opportunities for me to run an event at the beginning of the project, with parents. I'm not really into football, but this is a perfect example of an event where I can make my way along the aisle, and I interact and chat and banter with all these wonderful parents. And a lot of these parents never ever go into school, but you get them at a football match and they'll chat for England. So building positive relationships with parents is really, really key, an important part of the project for me. So oracy side of things, for me, it's not just about the voice. I know that the wonderful team at Voice 21 will tell you the same. So I teach the young people all about the importance of what you say, how you say it, and your body language and the way in which you communicate. So for me, it's great to say sorry, but if you say sorry like that and your body's down and it's a cross voice, what does that actually mean? Kids are fascinated by this, and I haven't actually had a group that are really conscious and aware of this yet. The first thing we work on in the project is how to walk in a room. And I talk to them all about how when I'm at a conference or an event, I'm really nervous inside, but I'll still walk in with an open face, a smile, and positive body language, and how we can actually really be conscious of the message that we're giving. And quite a lot of the young people I work with, I get a lot of boys at risk of exclusion. Negative body language is a really big part of their communication, but it's so often a part of their communication that they're not aware of. So we do a lot of work, both individually and in small groups, on positive communication. Words, the power of words, the power of choosing the right words. This picture behind is we did a project. We had a situation in one of our groups where there was some serious racist bullying. And so we did a whole project on it with a small group to try and tackle racism within the school. And the impact of words and the fact that you can't take them back was a really powerful part of that. But also, as a side, generally in the project, we do lots of work on appropriate vocabulary and how you empathise with your audience and use the vocabulary that helps you to communicate best with that person. This is my favourite bit of the project because it's something I've really learnt during it, that actually listening and responding is far more powerful than waiting for your turn to speak. This is an exercise that we do where if you have responded to what the last person said, rather than just saying your point, you get to get the string, and you then build up what wonderful interactions you can make. The kids find this really powerful, but so do I, because I know that I'm in meetings quite often where I'm not absorbing what someone's saying. I am just waiting for my turn to speak. And actually, by really listening to each other is how we progress in the world. So I've learned so much from this too. And then finally, public speaking. So the project will end with that, taking that risk. This is a picture of one of my wonderful students who was refusing to go into lessons, and by the end he was a model student at his school. I mean, the project had an unbelievable impact on him. That's not me, that's the opportunities that the project provided, and him really seizing that. And this is a speech he wrote to address his teachers at the end of the term before he moved up to secondary school, and I don't think there was a dry eye in all the staff when he finally presented it. And then now the metaphors. So for me, yeah, great, voice is brilliant, but how do we metaphorically find our voice? How do we find out who we are and how we are going to use our talents and skills to make the world a better place? So this is a picture of Loxley. Loxley has ADHD and autism. He actually runs Finding My Voice training with me. He would have been here today, but it's a Saturday, so give him the day off today. But he's just the most inspiring kid that I have ever worked with. He was refusing to engage with education at all when I started working with him. And it was a long process of really unpicking that for him. And I think the biggest thing we discovered was he was so scared of failing. But once we started to talk about what he was passionate about, um, his whole world changed because education began to serve a purpose for him. He began to make sense of the world. And he really, really loved biology and marine biology, particularly interested in deep sea biology. And this guy that he's with here is a marine biologist and one of the senior project managers at the Met Office. So part of the project is that I arrange an opportunity for every single young person to engage with somebody within the community around their interests. So he spent the day at the Met Office. He learnt that 82% of staff there are neurodiverse, which he found immensely powerful. He met so many inspiring men and women who just opened his world to this is what life can be like when you've worked hard in your education, you go and get a job you love. And following this day, he was back in class full time and he's absolutely thriving in secondary school. He's in year 8 now, and this was in year 6. The interesting thing about this, and this is something that is really unexpected for me within the project, is that the guy, John, here, who's showing Loxley this wall, he sent me an email saying, when can I have the next person? You know, he'd got so much personally about sharing his own journey, as much as Loxley had got about from visiting him, because actually it was really life affirming for him to have a young person so interested in his journey, and for him to have that sense of, wow, you know, I can actually inspire other people. So, you know, that's been a really wonderful part of the project for me, is how much the grown-ups get out of being involved as well. This gorgeous little soul, Ross. He didn't speak at all at the beginning of the project. He was complete mute in class. At the end of the project, he did a speech in front of the school. We discovered he could talk with a puppet. He spoke with a puppet for a whole term, and then the puppet went aside and he began to speak. Sorry, I'm getting emotional talking about him because he's amazing. He wanted to be a paramedic. You know, all of these kids have really sad backstories, actually. This is, you know, and yeah, he wanted to be a paramedic, and knew so much about how paramedics work and the instruments they use and what he needed to do. And so we managed to get this lovely paramedic to come in with the ambulance for the day, and he spent the first 2 hours with her, learned all the ropes, and then he gave guided tours to the other children as they came in. And yeah, he is a real success of the project as well. Bless his heart. So yeah, just some more examples. This is lovely Logan here. He really struggling in school, but actually we discovered that he's the most techie child you've ever met in your life. So he went to the theatre and learned to how they work the sound systems, had an amazing day there. And then stuff within school too. So we have Luke in the middle. He absolutely loved art, so we had lots of opportunities for him to enjoy art. And Tyler, there he is. He loves skateboarding. So, you know, we did amazing sessions with skateboarding. He made a skateboarding film, and then he connected with another child in the school who loves skateboarding too. And finally, in terms of the metaphor, I think it's bringing it together is actually, once you've learned to talk, you can then learn through talk as well. It's that metacognition is so powerful. This is a collective art piece I did with 5 children, and it was bringing together their collected individual experiences of work that they've been doing with me, which they then shared through art whilst talking about it. And they planned this is completely independent of me. I just provided the resources. So there was a lot of talk in this, there was also a lot of explaining what their learning had been. Yeah, this is a book. I don't know if you've come across it. It's about the meerkat. It's actually the parts of the brain. It's wonderful for children who really struggle, who've suffered trauma or anxiety. So this boy Kyron on the left was teaching Luke. He'd done the project before Luke, so this is an example of metacognition, but also mentoring. So the other boy had been struggling in a very similar way. So he used to come along to my sessions and teach him, which was a way of actually really deepening his learning, but also gave him that sort of empowerment of how far he'd come as well. So we've recently collaborated with Northcott Theatre, which has been amazing for the project. All the children on Finding My Voice get to attend the theatre for free with their families, which has been amazing. A lot of the grown-ups that come, I'm such a primary school teacher, I'm sorry, I still use the term grown-up. A lot of the adults that come, they actually have never been to the theatre before, which is just amazing. And this here on the right is In the Willows, which is an amazing production by Meta Theatre. If you don't know Meta Theatre, I highly recommend you follow them on Twitter. They are amazing. So this production was actually about young people that are growing up in more challenging environments and areas, and whether it's worth stepping out and making a difference, whether it's worth taking that risk. It was a very powerful story. And our kids got to go for free, and they also got to meet the cast afterwards. And then we planned our own performance based around this, which we shared with the cast as well. So it was just amazing. What I've noticed about watching theatre, it's not just an experience. It's that sense that you can actually be something different in the world. And it has such a deep impact on young person's belief and potential for change. It's just phenomenal. And also what I love about going to theatre with the kids is watching the kids watch the theatre. It's just, there is nothing like that. It's wonderful. So anyway, once they've been to the theatre, they also get to use the same stage for their performance. So the esteem for them is just so amazing. They've seen these really, stars in their eyes on this stage, and then they are on the stage themselves. And it's such a wonderful collaboration. So yeah, final thoughts is I really, really hope that we continue to run this successfully. I'm very lucky that we are now having some grant funded sessions coming up. We've had to close during lockdown, but I've been keeping in touch with all my kids during that time via Google. And yeah, I just want to make sure there's time for anyone who wants to ask any questions or discuss anything to take a risk and put their mic on. I've rambled enough. Thank you.
I think that was great, Rachel. I
Thank
think
you.
it's very open and honest, a lovely start. Really inspiring about, the startup to your company and just the impact and change that you have through your work on children who are in such, need. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a privilege. Thank you. I also wonder if there's anyone else who has any experience of anything else like this going on. My aspiration with the Northcott Theatre, we're about to begin a big new project, is to actually have other theatres and local companies running Finding My Voice across the country. So if anyone would like to be in contact about that, then I'd really be interested in pursuing that, because it's such a strong model and we've seen such a strong impact that I believe in that ripple effect, and I would just love it to impact more young people's lives in this way. You're all very quiet, but that's okay because it is lunchtime. Is there anyone else who'd like to ask anything or say anything? No?
You've got
Just
a
to
few.
say thank you, Rachel. Thanks very much. Really
Oh,
inspiring.
thank you. Thank you. No, it's lovely to have you. Nice, and thank you for showing your face. That was.
Can't see myself, so I've got no idea what part of my face you can see, but never mind. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Oh, Emma's there. Hello, Emma.
Hello, I didn't get to see it all because I have to dip in and out to check everyone's all right, but I love the bit I saw. You got me quite choked up.
Oh, I had an unexpected teary moment because some of these kids, of course, they like one of them I spoke about actually has just moved. He moved to Wales a year ago. You know how you often wonder about how they are, and yeah, it's lovely to just see how far they've come.
What an impact. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for coming. I was really fearful that it would just be me talking to one person. It'll be awkward. But thank you so much for the opportunity, Emma. And thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, Rachel. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.